Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Friday, September the 8th, 2023. Yesterday I talked about Prince Charles and this theory that when Harry was born, he was really upset because he was expecting a girl. He wanted a girl, he got a boy, and he made his displeasure very clear. Indeed, so clear that Diana kind of realized at that particular moment, that the marriage was over. It's certainly an interesting theory, and I think there is some astrological evidence to support it. So, having looked at Charles's chart yesterday, I also looked at Diana's chart. I want to continue with a royal theme, so apologies if you find that a bit tedious. I'm going to look at Harry's chart, which actually seems appropriate because he's got a birthday next week. He's going to be 39 years old, and I'm going to look at his solar return, see if we can find out anything interesting. I also want to look at Charles's chart again, and while I'm at it, I want to look at William's chart, Prince William's chart. Yeah, it's going to be a bit chaotic, sort of moving from one chart to the other. I know there's still a lot of interest out there in the royals and royal charts. But when we look at these kind of charts, we should remember that we're just doing it as an illustration. We all know about the royals. Their biographies are out there. They tend to have exact times of birth, and so we can kind of use the royal charts as kind of illustrations for our own practice. If we can do a particular technique on, I don't know, Prince Charles's chart, then we can do it on our own chart, or the charts of friends, family, clients, etc. But before I do all that, I want to look at the astrology for today, and today is Friday, September the 8th, 2023. So here we have the chart for today. This is set for noon in New York. The main theme today is a square aspect between the moon in Cancer and Mars in Libra. And that kind of dominates the day. Moon square Mars, it can be a difficult aspect. It can be quite an angry aspect. The moon is about our emotions. In a way, the Mars is about our emotions as well. About how we assert ourselves, what happens when we get angry. And so with Moon Square Mars, a lot of people out there are going to have short fuses. It won't take much to make them annoyed. So in general, I think we need to tread carefully. Don't say things that are controversial unless you're really prepared for a reaction. And I think that people are going to be quick to take offence. And put yourself in that position. You might be quick to take offence. You might be quick to get angry. Now, you have the advantage of the fact that I am telling you that Moon is square Mars. Well, you might already know, but if you didn't know, Moon square Mars. So I'm just warning you. Look at the way you respond to other people. So if someone says something that you find offensive, don't necessarily overreact. It might have been just carelessness on their part. Even if it wasn't carelessness, anger is not the best way often of correcting the situation. You can perhaps tell someone they've got it wrong in a logical and polite way without hitting the roof. So that's a bit of a warning there. Now, I'm not saying that it's all bad. You can see that the Sun is in Virgo, making a trine to Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter might be going retrograde, but a Sun-Jupiter trine is pretty good. It's fortunate. It's in Earth signs, so it's a good opportunity to do stuff which might in the end lead to a financial or material gain. It's important to be optimistic, but because the trine is in Earth signs, to also be realistic. And I think that combination of optimism and realism with this Sun-Jupiter trine in Earth signs could be really useful. So if you see a financial opportunity or a business opportunity, then go for it. Don't expect immediate results. Don't expect just everything's gonna be easy. No, but Sun in Virgo trine Jupiter in Taurus is able to work hard, is able to work consistently, and in the end is able to get good results. Now, another aspect I want to talk about is Mars and Uranus. This aspect becomes exact sort of towards the end of the day, depending on where you are into tomorrow. So this isn't just about today. This aspect is kind of today and tomorrow. You'll see that Mars is at 7:49 Libra and Uranus is at 23:02 Taurus. So in other words, Mars and Uranus are 135 degrees apart. As I always say with these 135-degree aspects, think of it in terms of cakes. Cakes with eight parts, eight slices with equal angles. So an 135-degree aspect is 3 slices of cake, and it's 3/8 of a circle, and it's powerful. As I often say, a close sesquiquadrate or a close semi-square is going to be more powerful than a close trine or a close sextile, all things being equal. Mars sesquiquadrate Uranus is problematic in the sense that it could be quite violent. It could be it could relate to perhaps people losing their temper. It could be sort of warlike. With this Mars Uranus sesquiquadrate. If you're in a war zone, and there are war zones, and it's not just in Ukraine with that Mars sesquiquadrate Uranus, be careful, and also be careful with machinery. Whatever you're doing, whatever the machinery you're involved with, whether it's cars, things that cut, things that involve, things that have a lot of power, which need to be handled carefully, like chainsaws, brush cutters, that kind of thing. With a Mars sesquiquadrate Uranus, be really careful. Pay attention, and if you've got any doubts, don't use them. And so, of course, it goes without saying, be careful with guns. I mean, guns are connected with Mars sesquiquadrate Uranus. Matters are made more immediate by the fact that the Sun is the Sun. If you look at the Sun, there's the Mars Uranus midpoint. The Sun is actually semi-square the Mars Uranus midpoint. So that makes it really very immediate. That really hits it off. So that really does underline what I said. Just be really careful with machinery. In general, don't take risks with this Mars sesquiquadrate Uranus, because it's potentially quite a nasty aspect. And again, it's not just today; it's tomorrow as well. So be careful there. I should point out that this Mars-Uranus aspect is on the Venus-Saturn midpoint. Now, Venus-Saturn can be about relationships. Venus is the planet of love, but Saturn is the planet of restriction. And so Venus-Saturn is potentially about a relationship but is not working well, where emotions are getting twisted, or emotions are not being expressed. But then Mars-Uranus comes along and stirs it up. So if you are in a relationship of any kind and it has been going badly, or you feel that it might be about to go badly, or if you and your partner, have already got annoyances with each other, this Mars-Uranus hitting the Venus-Saturn midpoint could be a real problem. So I would suggest maybe relationships should be de-emphasized. Certainly the emotional side of things, because emotions could be twisted. There could be all sorts of weird projections, and in certain extreme situations there is a capacity for violence there with Mars and Uranus on the Venus-Saturn midpoint. So overall today, there's a lot of anger there, and I think you have to be careful. Just focus on the Sun-Jupiter trine. Just do something like work hard. Don't do anything controversial. Just take advantage of the luck that is available, and I think that luck is going to relate to material and business side of things. Relationships need a great deal of caution today. So that's my overall picture, and what I want to do now is look at the 12 signs and my forecast for the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for today, which is Friday, September the 8th, 2023. Aries, you probably don't want to stay too long in one place, because if you do, the level of anger might start increasing. Indeed, you should probably avoid hanging out with just one person. The intensity could be overwhelming. But if you have a varied social life, or you stick to your own company, you should be fine. Taurus, you know what you are talking about, and you can express yourself in a way that is emotionally reassuring. But you can't expect everyone to appreciate your message, and with the moon making a stressful aspect to Mars, there could be some bad feeling. But if you're in the right, well, that just can't be helped, can it? Gemini, you understand your responsibilities, and your approach to money is commendable. You just know what needs to be done, and you're ready to start looking at the finer details. And some of the savings you can make are very impressive. So just think about where you're spending your money, and I think if you look at the matter, you'll realize that you could be spending less money if you were more careful. However, you should make sure that when you're out enjoying yourself, that you pay attention, because in a few minutes, or even just 1 minute, you could completely blow the budget. So if you are out enjoying yourself, decide beforehand how much you want to spend, and just don't go over the limit. Cancer. It's good that the moon is in Cancer, your star sign, because you come over as a naturally sympathetic person who is well grounded. But the moon makes a 90-degree aspect to Mars. Other people's behaviour could cause a lot of trouble. So, however well you know someone, consider the possibility that they could mess everything up. Leo. Just because you're not really in the mood for large-scale social interaction doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad day. The Sun, your ruler, is making a wonderful aspect to Jupiter, so in the right environment you're going to be lucky and well balanced. And at work and in business you'll be able to quietly and successfully get on with the job. Virgo. You're plugged into the universe. You know about people's likes and dislikes, and you have a good understanding of prevailing trends. And if you need information, you'll quickly find it, even if you need help from the other side of the world. But some Virgoans might feel a great need to travel, though remember, what you're looking for is probably right in front of your nose. Libra. Uncharacteristically for a Libran, you're capable of causing a lot of trouble. It's because you want results, and your impatience could upset the apple cart. Is that what you want? I suppose if you really push it, you can get results, even if you're leaving a mess for everyone else to clear up. So overall, give consideration to your priorities. Scorpio. You don't seem very relaxed at the moment, and you'll be quick to make criticisms. I suppose you have your own ideas, and you're prepared to stand up for them. And if anyone talks nonsense, you'll give them a piece of your mind. But if there is too much strife, you'll never reach your destination. Sagittarius. You can sometimes be very unsubtle, ploughing in without considering other people's sensibilities, and today's Moon-Mars square might encourage you to say things that are really not advisable, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. So, if possible, you should hold back and save your more controversial opinions for later. Capricorn. If you try to do too many different things, you'll get nothing done. It's therefore important that you decide on your priorities and that you don't mix things up. Overall, I think you do have to focus on relationships, but you mustn't regard it as a chore. Partners have their role, but they also have their limitations. Aquarius. There's a clash between what's boring and what's uplifting. You want to rise above your everyday world rather than be stuck in the everyday grind. But everything has its own meaning, whether it's cleaning a desk, picking potatoes, or prostrating oneself at the feet of the Buddha. You need to see the unity in things rather than the separation. Pisces. There are lots of people to interact with, and you're helped by a good grasp of the details. After all, the Sun in Virgo is making a fortunate aspect to Jupiter in Taurus. But you need a certain gravitas, because some people are taking themselves very seriously. If you seem too relaxed, you could lose respect. So let me now move on to the I Ching. So as always, I threw 3 coins in the air and I asked the question, what is Friday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And the first hexagram I threw was hexagram number 2, the receptive. Now you will see that all the lines here are broken, and the receptive, it's about pure negativity. And I don't mean negativity in a negative sense or in a bad sense. It's just about responding. It's just picking up what's going on in the world, not acting, not being the one who initiates, being the one who responds, being passive. There's a place for this, and that's how the day starts. It's important to be passive, because if we feel that we want to create something, we will be out of sync with the times in which we're living, or at least you'll be out of sync with what's going on today. Just remember, this is a short-term I Ching reading, just covering today, Friday. Now, there is a certain sense of decay here, and this line here moves, and the I Ching, when it considers this line moving, it talks about the first signs of winter. Now, that might seem inappropriate if you're listening to me and you're in the southern hemisphere. So in that case, you might see winter in a more sort of metaphorical sense. But here in Washington State, winter's in the air, even though it's early September. You can feel it. And when you look at those first signs of winter, when you look at, the very beginnings, that's like you're seeing the beginning of decay. Other people might not notice it, but it's there. And so we might be faced with a situation that seems to be going fine, but we can see the beginnings. We can see the beginnings of it going wrong. But forearmed is forewarned. We need to accept that. And there are other lines moving. There's the third line moves, the fourth line moves. The moving third line is indicating that we need to be very modest. This is not a time for showing off, telling the world about our many talents. No, we need to keep quiet about what we can do. We certainly don't want to boast. Obviously, if we can do something and there's an offer, we can say, "Look, I can do that. I can help." That's fine. But if we start to sing our own praises, or act in an ostentatious way, it could well backfire, however talented we are. So we do have to be careful. And then the fourth line moves, and again there's a warning here. It's actually saying there's a danger. We're supposed to be receptive. We're supposed to keep quiet about what we can do. It's not a time for boasting. And if we do make a lot of noise, we could all of a sudden make ourselves vulnerable. I'm not sure how that vulnerability works out, but you have to consider the situation. The day starts with a certain amount of modesty, and we just have to do what's expected of us, and also be aware that we're in a situation that is starting to decline. It may not be personal. It may be what we're involved in, something involving other people, or just some activities, some aspect of our life. We're starting to see the beginning of that decline, and so we wouldn't have to think, well, what are we going to do about that? I mean, it shouldn't be something that we get too upset about, because nothing lasts forever, and we have to think perhaps about the next stage. This hexagram, the receptive, does switch. It does move, and it moves to hexagram 55, which is about abundance. So having gone through all of this, what I talked about with receptive, we might then start to think that actually things are okay. I said that we see the first signs of decay, but it's often the case, isn't it? We see the first signs of decay. We make a mental note of it, and then we go on and we think, hold on, well, it's still going, it's still fine. Let's not worry about it. And then when we move to abundance, the I Ching says of abundance, it is the height of civilization. Something we're involved in may seem to be at its very peak, but the I Ching also says, "Be not sad." I think it says something like, the Wilhelm translation says, "Be not sad like the midday sun." Midday sun, in other words, the sun has reached its peak. It's not getting any higher. After midday, the sun starts to go down. And so that is abundance. This is the peak of civilization. And so we may find we're involved in something that is at its peak. Enjoy it. Make the absolute most of it. But again, realize that it's passing its peak. We have to start to prepare for the next stage. So this hexagram abundance does actually pick up on that, the first line of a previous hexagram of a receptive. We have to accept that something is coming to an end. It's not coming to an end immediately, and its surface appearance would suggest that it's absolutely fine, but it is not, and we have to start to quietly prepare for the next stage, or perhaps for its replacement, and in that way we can be ahead of the crowd. So that's the I Ching, and now I'm going to go back to the astrology, and in fact I'm going to go back to what I was talking about yesterday, which is King Charles's horoscope, and then I'm going to look at Harry and William's chart. So going to King Charles's chart, there are a couple of points about this chart. I mentioned the fact that when Harry was born, it was Charles's Venus return. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So that's King Charles. So there was Prince Charles's Venus, and there was Harry's Venus, and I suggested that really did demonstrate to me that there really was an expectation that Harry was going to be, that Harry was that Diana's second child was going to be a girl. The fact that it was on a Venus return, you think that in astrology a Venus return should be very fortunate. If you have got Venus in Libra, Venus in Libra works well. Venus rules Libra. So during the time of your Venus return, it should be a good day. And yeah, sure, a child was born. But I think that Venus return really did set up the expectation that it was going to be a girl. I mean, that does seem strange. I know this was quite a long time ago, in 1984, but in 1984 they still had all the technology to be able to tell a child's gender well before birth. Indeed, Diana knew, according to the claim, Diana knew it was going to be a boy, but Charles wasn't interested in knowing it. We didn't just want it to be a surprise. He was so sure it was going to be a girl. He didn't even want to know the sonogram results I don't know, is sonogram, is that the same as an ultrasound? Probably. So that was the expectation, and I kind of think it interesting that when Harry married Meghan, Charles gave Meghan away. Now, normally it isn't. That's the role of the bride's father to give her away. Of course, Meghan had her issues with her father, so Charles gave away Meghan, and I kind of think that may provide some evidence that he really did want to have a daughter who he could give away. So he did the next best thing and gave away his daughter-in-law. But I think that does link to what this rumor is suggesting, that he really wanted a daughter. Now, another thing about Charles, which I wanted to mention, is the fact that Charles is the head of state. He is the King of England. Now, you might say that the King of England doesn't have a great deal of power. I mean, not real power. The King in England has a huge amount of theoretical power, but in terms of real power, the monarch isn't able to do much. Nonetheless, the monarch is the monarch, and the monarch is the head of state. And so you can look at Charles's chart and say perhaps something about the UK, maybe. You've got sort of he's got Neptune on the IC. Is it good to have a ruler who's got Neptune on the IC? Does that say something about what's happening in the UK? You kind of normally think that Neptune on the IC is about questions of roots. Charles may have concerns about his own grounding, and having a king who's concerned about his grounding makes the country perhaps feel a little uncomfortable. What is it? What is it to be British? What does it mean? Where is it? What is the foundation of the country? And there may be sort of issues about security. Now, as far as what's going on in England, okay, we do in the UK. From what I've heard, the economy is a real mess. Plus the fact the UK is involved in a war. It's involved in a war, kind of in a war with Russia. Okay, you might say, but it's not formally a war with Russia. But it is providing huge amounts of help to Ukraine. And, I'm wondering if that is necessarily such a good idea. Britain is not what it was. It's not like in the 19th century, the last time Britain had a real war with Russia. Had the Crimean War, and in the 19th century, Britain was concerned about Russian expansionist plans. Believe it or not, there was the Great Game when Russia and Russia and the UK were vying with each other in Central Asia, Afghanistan and so on. So that was a long time ago, but the UK is a small country, and messing with Russia might be quite a dangerous thing to do. And I actually think this is reflected in Charles's horoscope. So what we might want to do is relocate Charles's chart. So he was born in London. 9:14 p.m. But what we do is we keep the time, we keep the date, but we change the location, and we change the location to Moscow. And if we change the location of Charles's chart to Moscow, we see that Saturn is on the ascendant and the Sun is on the IC. And particularly having Saturn on the ascendant, that is problematic. And the fact that you've got these two angles, Sun on the IC, Saturn on the ascendant. In the jargon, that's a mundane square between Sun and Saturn. They're not in a zodiac square, but in terms of the houses, they are square. This is problematic because this war in Russia could really damage Britain, and I think that this chart suggests it, particularly now. Now you think about what is going on astrologically. Saturn is in early Virgo. Saturn is in early Pisces. So Saturn's in Pisces. So Saturn, when you set Charles's chart for Moscow, Saturn is on the seventh house cusp. The seventh house represents the enemies. And you've got Uranus is in Taurus. Uranus is on the midheaven. So in this chart, Charles's chart set for London, we've got Saturn on the descendant, and we have got Uranus on the midheaven at the same time. And this indicates to me that absolutely no good is going to come of Britain's continued intervention in this war, because Charles is the country. Again, if you take the medieval concept of kingship, with Uranus on the midheaven, Saturn on the descendant, it's going to go wrong. Over the last few days, there's been a lot of news reports of a Challenger tank being destroyed. I think this is the first Challenger tank that's ever been destroyed in combat. And I think it's just been deployed. The first time it's been kind of used in combat. It's the first time it got destroyed in combat. And a Challenger tank, maybe that's another symbol of Britain's, UK's imperial pretensions. I think with this relocated chart for Moscow, no good is going to come of this. I think Britain needs to disengage from this war as soon as possible. At least that's what the astrology says. I'm just trying to be neutral. But Charles's chart indicates, with his relocated chart set for Moscow, really does indicate that Britain is really heading for trouble with this war, and it needs to stop. So that's Charles's chart, and then there's Harry's chart. Because it's his birthday, and Harry's going to be 39. Now, if you're into sort of Hellenistic astrology, Hellenistic astrology isn't really my thing. But I know a lot of people are into Hellenistic astrology, and they make extensive use of annual profections. Annual profections has become a very popular technique, in the last 10, 20 years. The idea that you have a year ruler. So there's Harry, Capricorn rising, and so every year you click to a new sign. So when he's born, he's Capricorn rising, ruled by Saturn. So when he hits his first birthday, it moves to Aquarius. You've also got Saturn, and then you click round, and every 12 years it repeats. So when he was 36, again we had a repeat here, and Saturn would have been his annual ruler. So 36, 37, 38, 39. So now we've clicked to the fourth house. So everyone, when they hit 39, will be in a sort of fourth house period, and we have to consider the Mars, because Mars rules the fourth house, and we have to consider anything aspecting the fourth house. In particular, there's Venus opposition the fourth house. I mean, that's, I think, the sort of, maybe that's a bit of a simplification. Now, from a very generic point of view, we might say that this is a time in Harry's life, as in all of our lives, when we hit 39, for some reason, the fourth house, just becomes very important. And I'm thinking about myself when I was 39. I did a big move when I was 39, so it kind of works for me, just thinking about myself. With Harry, we already know that Harry is not entirely happy, and he's living far away from his homeland, and this fourth house thing is going to is probably going to have a real impact when he hits his birthday. The question is, where is he living? Is he living in the right place? That kind of thing. Now, this Venus opposition of the fourth house, I think there are going to be different views about what that means. I think that and it may be coloured by your prejudices. I mean, if you're a fan of Meghan, you might say, well, Venus is aspecting the fourth house. There's Meghan. She's Venus. She's going to sort things out. Marriage is fine. She's there, going to help him find security, because Venus is in Libra. I mean, that really helps. On the other hand, you could symbolically see the issue. There's Harry. That's where Harry wants to be, and there's Meghan. She's the other side. She's in opposition somehow. But what Meghan wants and what Harry wants are not necessarily the same thing. So there are two completely different ways of looking at this. If you do Hellenistic astrology, you do annual perfections, feel free to sort of comment and on this, and let me know your view. Mars is ruler of the fourth house. He has Mars in the 12th house. In Hellenistic astrology, you use the whole sign houses. So he has Mars in the 12th. It's perhaps not a brilliant Mars. It's kind of widely conjunct Neptune. Of course, if you are a Hellenistic astrologer, and that means you are traditional, you don't need to look at Neptune, because you only need to worry about the discovered planets. That Mars could be an issue. Mars in the 12th. Mars is about feeling sort of quite isolated, I think. Mars in the 12th. Maybe that's an overly psychological way of looking at it. Now, in terms of other things going on in his chart, there is Harry's solar return. So this is a moment the sun returns to where it returns to where he was born. When I do solar returns, I set it up for the place of birth, not for the place you are when you have that solar return. And I know that might be a controversial view. So looking at Harry's solar return for 2023, set for London. This solar return does indicate perhaps a few problems. I have recently been looking at Chiron in these charts, and I don't know about Chiron. In general, I think people read too much into Chiron. It's an extremely small body. I mean, it's really, really small. It is actually a comet discovered in 1977. But Chiron is conjunct Harry's midheaven. Now, that may say something about his direction. I've sort of read that did he have some Netflix documentary on the Invictus Games? And from what I've heard, it didn't do very well. So from a career perspective, there might be a wound there, because if Chiron is a wounded healer, a feeling of rejection. Okay, you could say, oh, well, that's a new line of career that, maybe Chiron about healing or whatever, but I think Harry needs to heal himself before he can even consider healing other people. But that might be how the Chiron is working in the solar return. Now, in the solar return, two things you really do need to look at are the sun and the moon. The moon, you can see the moon is in the third house, and it's moving towards a conjunction of Mars. That does indicate trouble. Not immediately, perhaps. You could say, well, the moon and Mars are 9 degrees apart, so perhaps that's something that might happen next spring or summer before his 40th birthday. So that's a Moon-Mars conjunction. And then there's the Sun, and the Sun is moving to an opposition of Neptune. So that also could be problematic. The Sun is 2.5 degrees off Neptune, so he may be running into some trouble there. Neptune is in the ninth house. The planet of the house relating to long distance travel. So that might point to sort of confusion about where he's living and so forth. That might be it. But what really stands out about this solar return is one aspect that is exact. He's got Sun at 2257 Virgo, Uranus at 2257 Taurus. In other words, he's got an exact trine between Sun and Uranus. It is exact. The trine happened the moment the Sun returned to where it was when he was born. Now, I have just said that trines are not as powerful as semi-squares and semi-sextiles, but this trine is exact, and it's a solar return. So the solar return, we need to really look at the Sun, and I kind of feel that this trine, okay, it may be positive, but it's positive about Harry making a decision to do something quite dramatic, because it's a kind of it's quite a destabilizing aspect. Is Harry going to be able to pull it off? Now that Uranus, by the way, if I remember rightly, yes. Megan has her Sun in Leo, but her secondary progressed Sun is now at 22 Virgo. Her secondary progressed Sun is actually conjunct Harry's Sun. So this Uranus is going to really stir things up in the relationship, because I think Harry might actually find his voice. I'm thinking Harry might be able to say what he wants. He's going to say, this is actually what I want. and maybe it's going to be a surprise, and maybe in terms of a marriage, it could cause quite a bit of instability there. So that's a theory about how this Sun trine Uranus is going to work. If it was a square to Uranus, I might say that Harry needs to watch out, that there might be some event from outside. Okay, it could still happen with a trine. But is, I suppose, a manifestation of the trine. But I think that something is going to be shaken up with that Sun trine, Uranus. Then there's Harry's secondary progressions. Now, these secondary progressions do really hint at the fact that Harry's not really particularly happy. His progressed moon has been in Scorpio for some time, and the progressed moon right now, at the time of his birthday, is going to be at around 3 degrees Scorpio, and the moon is at maximum fall at 3 degrees Scorpio. So that strikes me as being quite miserable at the moment. The moon right now is just passing the conjunction with Pluto, so that is difficult. Though I suppose it's not going to get much worse, perhaps. But I still think that Harry's got some serious challenges ahead of him. Certainly his Vedic chart seems to suggest that, but I'm not going to talk about his Vedic chart today. Another interesting thing about Harry's chart is another exact aspect. Now, in the secondary progressions, things move slowly. So when things actually become outer planets go exact, it can be a really big deal. And his progressed Jupiter is at 740 Capricorn, and his progressed Chiron is at 740 Gemini. So that means he's got an exact Jupiter Chiron quincunx. That's the 150 degree aspect. What would that mean? I would have said that it would mean that he can't see where he's going. His sort of urge for expansion has just been blocked. I think he's really stuck. I think he feels that he feels that he can't see the future. He can't perceive the future. He can't perceive the wider horizons out there. I think that might be how that's working. And final thing about this progressed chart is his Mars. Progressed Mars is at 1341 Capricorn. So remember that, 1341 Capricorn. Oh, progressed Saturn is, of course, at 1658. Progressed Saturn at 1658 Scorpio, just a reminder about what that means. His midheaven, Harry's midheaven is at 1702 Scorpio. So his progressed Saturn is exactly on his midheaven. Now, progressed Saturn is a very slow mover. It can take a lifetime to move a few degrees, but it's close enough. Saturn is exactly on his midheaven. So with his progressed Saturn on exactly midheaven, just remembering what I've just said about Chiron, quincunx, Mars, I think, like, from a career direction point of view, he feels like he has hit an absolute complete brick wall. I think that Netflix, the disappointing viewing figures about his Netflix and Invictus, and the theory that the public are perhaps bored of Invictus. I was reading some interviews about it, good cause, but the public, I think one commenter was saying that it was all a bit too worthy, was the word used. But Harry has, I think, from his from his directions and his solar his progressions and his solar return and everything, he's hitting a real complete brick wall. He needs some career counselling fast, because he's going in the wrong direction. Sorry, but I was going to talk about something else, which was that Mars at 1341 Capricorn. So his progressed Mars is at 1341 Capricorn. And so what I want to do now is look at Harry's chart and relate it to the United States, where he's living. I do think it's important, if you live in a country, particularly if you weren't born in that country, or not a citizen of that country, to see how you relate to that country. So we'll put USA on the outer ring. So the USA has its sun at 1319 Cancer. So his progressed Mars is at 1341 Capricorn. So the exact square with the USA sun was 6 months ago. But I think the fact that his progressed Mars is square the USA's sun is, I'm thinking that at some level he's getting annoyed with the United States. Might not seem like it, but I think he is. And I think that the United States is possibly not really his kind of place. Amazing as that might sound, the USA's Neptune is at 2225 Virgo. So the USA's Neptune is right on Harry's sun. So Harry goes to the United States, or indeed he meets Americans, and he becomes confused. Maybe in some way Megan bore that Neptune at 2225 Virgo, a woman who confused and dazzled him. And America confused and dazzled him. He can't really see America for what it is, and maybe he's now beginning to see it. And that's that's a problem. I'm not making a criticism of America here. It's just how people respond to different countries, and I'm thinking that those two things right now, it's possibly not working out too well. Oh, and another thing is that I just mentioned the fact that Harry's progressed Mars is square the US. Is square the US sun. So the US's Mars, in other words, when we had the Declaration of Independence, Mars was at 2123, Gemini at 5:10 in the afternoon on July the 4th, 1776. And that progressed Mars is square Harry's sun. Again, I think Harry is starting to find America annoying. There's Mars. There's America's Mars square Neptune. That's all the sort of glamour, and it's hitting his sun, and it's not working, is it? I don't think he likes it, and so this may be the time that Harry, looking at the overall. Looking at the whole thing overall, bearing in mind that Harry has got his moon at 21 Taurus. He's got his moon on the 4th house at 21 Taurus, a very home-orientated moon. Uranus is now hitting that moon. Looking at this overall thing, I think we can see perhaps astrologically that Harry is going to start to realize, if he hasn't already realized, that his destiny is not in the United States. Finally, I wanted to very quickly look at William's horoscope while I'm on the subject I said I'm going to be really quick. What I wanted to say about William's horoscope is that he's got a solar arc direction right now, that I just noticed, and I'm just pointing it out very quickly. So William has his moon at 458 Cancer, and there is his Venus at 2540 Taurus. And so remember, with the solar arc direction, what we are doing is we are moving all the planets 1 degree for every year of life. So if we put Prince William in the middle and we look at William's solar arc direction, we notice his solar arc Venus is at 459 Cancer. In other words, he has got solar arc directed Venus exactly on his moon, like exactly right now. So I'm wondering what that would mean. Normally, you would expect Venus conjunct the moon, to be quite fortunate. It's to do with relationships. It's also could be connected with children, childbirth. So maybe this is hinting at maybe this is hinting at another child. I don't know. I mean, it seems that's one possible interpretation. I mean, it's quite a private thing. It's not something that he would necessarily be shouting about, Venus conjunct the moon. But he's obviously already married, so it's not a new relationship, so that it's not going to be that. It's not going to be something like a promotion, because it's not like that, because he already is one heartbeat from being King of England, King of the UK, British King. So that, I suppose that's a disadvantage about being a king or the Prince of Wales, is that you're not going to get any sort of unexpected promotions, unexpected opportunities, because you've already got all the opportunities you can possibly want, or maybe not want. So I was just thinking, what else? What other good stuff can happen in his life? And I was thinking, well, maybe there's another child coming up. That's a possibility with that Venus conjunct the moon. And the Venus moon is actually hinted at, in terms of a repeated signature, it's also in his solar return. So in his solar return, this was a solar return that's set for his last birthday, June the 21st. There is a moon Venus conjunction on the 9th house cusp. So there is a repeated signature. Anyway, I'm just thought I'd just point that out. I didn't really look at Catherine's chart, his wife's chart, but I thought it would be remiss not to just point out the fact that William does have this solar return, which potentially which should be fortunate. Of course, nothing might happen. Sometimes you get solar arc directions, you get events like this, and nothing happens. It does happen all the time in astrology. But if one was trying to speculate what it might mean, the birth of another child is one possibility. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.